Hello, my name is Thomas Shelowise with Night Train Pickleball.
Welcome to the Night Train Pickleball Academy Level 2. Today we're going to start the first video on the 2-video series on the return. So we want to just go over a few things before, just as reminders. Number one is the 5 phases of pickleball. Just a reminder on that. We'll probably go through all this reminder as we're tying all 5 phases together and go through all 5 video series. So we already went through the first phase, which was the serve, the 2-video series there. And now we're going through the return phase 2, and this will be the first video in that series. The third phase is the no volley zone or advancing 2. The fourth phase is the short game, the dinking, and then of course the number 5 phase is put away shot or hitting the winner, and that's why we're going through all 4 phases to get to phase number 5. So that's just a little quick reminder on the 5 phases of pickleball. And of course, like I said, today we're talking about the return. This will be part 1 in this series. And so just a few things, reminders, especially if you went through level 1. We went through the USAPA definition of a receiver. This is the player who is positioned diagonally opposite the server to return the serve. Depending on the team score, the player who returns a serve may not be the correct server. I know they say that. Typically what that means is the person who's supposed to return the serve needs to be the correct one. If it doesn't happen, then it ends up being a fault and a point for the serving team, right? So there's a couple ways you can do that. One is you can ask the referee if you are in the correct position, and he will say yes or no. You can't ask if you're the correct receiver, but you can ask if you're in the correct position. Number 2, you can also, as he says the score or repeats the score, you can from that decide if you are in the right position or not, depending on if you start on the left or the right. When the first serve was served of the game, will potentially let you know if you understand how that scoring works. Okay, so there's 2 potential ways to find out, but whoever is receiving the serve is the receiver, and you may hear me refer to him as the returner as well, but it's the receiver. Okay, so let's jump right into the next one. The purpose of the return at their intermediate level, pickleball level here, where we are right now, in level 2, the purpose of this level for the return shot or the second shot in this series is to strategically start setting up a winner or put away shot in the next 2 or 3 shots. So here at this level, unlike beginner level 1, where the goal is just to get the ball back over, here we're not worried about ball control. We're more concerned about ball placement, okay? So now we know that you can control the ball. You can put the ball pretty much where you want to. And so now it becomes very strategic based on the serving team, right? And we'll get into that in the second video. But basically, you're starting to strategize based on where you're going to hit the return, how you're going to set your team up for the third shot and hitting the fourth shot, right? So the way you can then enter into the third phase of the game or the short game with this advantage. So that is what you're wanting to do with the return, okay? And we're going to talk about, so this video is really going to be broken down into position and more about defending certain serves to be able to give you the advantage, in which we're going to talk about in the next video, and where specifically you want to return it. So this one is going to be more about positioning yourself to do 2 things. 1, to defend against certain serves, and 2, to bait certain serves to really go set up to receive serves that you really are going to give you the best opportunity and the best option. So it's important to remember two things. One is new and one is not so new. One is placement, and the second is the no volley zone. So it is important to think through and communicate to your partner where you will be placing the return shot and what to be looking for in the third shot, right? So as they hit the third shot back, potentially put away opportunities or set up shot from the third shot mishap or mistake on server side. So if they give you something, you take advantage of it, and it's not a great return third shot, or they set you up, then is a great opportunity to be looking for that, right? So however, it is still important that you make it to the no volley zone and back up your partner for 4-shot opportunity or start of the short game. So you don't want to hit the shot and then stay back and look at it. At this point, you want to be making it to the no volley zone. Okay, so there will be, based on how you hit the ball, there will be a little more in the second video on what if you get caught and you don't make it. That will be an easy answer, but we'll answer that in the second video. So right now, the goal doesn't change. You still want to make it there, right? So then let's jump right into the next thing. Very important reminder, especially if you went through level 1, that the return is a ground stroke. Okay, so you see how the player here is turned and opened up towards, in this case, his partner. He's not opened up towards the net, and what I mean by that is his chest and his head are not facing the net and the opponents. He's actually turned sideways. He's actually facing his partner right now because he's going to be able to take a bigger swing. He's going to be able to turn and rotate through the swing, right? And then legs are stacked one behind the other. And even though his left foot's slightly behind his right foot, he's still turned in a way that he can be able to put more power generated through his leg and hip and core to get a decent return, right? So just a reminder that the return is a ground stroke and not a third shot drop positioning, okay? So let's get into it. So return position 1, to defend the serve. So a neutral way to defend the serve, especially at the beginning of the game, if you haven't watched the opponent serve or you don't know how they're going to serve, is to stand in the middle of your box, of course behind the baseline, but in the middle of your box. Now you're exposing the backhand and you're exposing your forehand, right? So you're not really covering one side or the other. You're really just standing in the middle, and I will do this potentially to get a feel for the server, right? Based on how they hold the ball, how they load up, how they swing. I can tell pretty quick what some strengths are and what some weaknesses are, and basically based off them serving a couple of times, I can start deciding how I want to start setting up to give us the best opportunity at a return. Of course, I'm talking to my partner as I'm watching these things happen, so we can start strategizing the future points that are coming, okay? So then the next position, the return position 2 to defend the serve, is me basically moving towards the center line. I'm really covering the backhand, so even if he hits it in that direction, I can take a few steps back and it's still my forehand. But you can see where the circle is. I'm giving up the forehand. The forehand is open, so I'm actually keeping that open on purpose. So I'm taking the backhand away, and I'm really giving him a huge option to take the forehand, or baiting him, if you will, to take the forehand, because it gives me a lot of opportunities being right-handed and my forehand being my stronger side. It gives me a lot of opportunity and a lot of options of what I can do with the ball because I have way more control on that side. Of course, there's a little bit of a downside to some of these things, depending on the server, especially if they have really good control. I'm leaving the front corner open, and there's some players who can hit that with a skipping serve or a slicing serve. You just have to know as you're serve as the person serving to you reading, you have to know what the chances are. A lot of times people are not trying to hit that, especially if you're playing in these high level tournaments. They're not trying to hit that front corner. They're just getting the serve in to get the game going, because they're not trying to hit winners on the first shot on the serve. They are just trying to start strategy with the serve and then get to the line, right? So that is a potential, though, that you just have to keep in mind. How likely is it that they can hit that? Some of them may never hit it. Some of them may try and have low percentage, and there's few of them that could probably hit it consistently. You just have to read that from the very beginning, right? So let's go ahead and jump into the next one, which is now position 3. You defend the serve. You're covering the forehand and you're opening up the backhand. And for a lot of players that are right-handed, this is limiting opportunities. If I do this, it's because I'm seeing a server serve a certain type of serve that I think with my backhand I can, that gives me an advantage to hit the shot that I'm looking for. Because a lot of players will make the assumption that your backhand isn't as good, and even though mine isn't as good as my forehand, I still have a few shots that I can hit from my backhand. So if I know they're giving a serve that typically I can do something with, then I will open this up. But it does limit your options on what you can do, right? So the other thing it may potentially do is, you see my partner up there, potentially move my partner over to cover more the middle and give up the sideline. So he may have to come. So if he sees me slide over and he wants to keep the same distance, even though there's a big gap between us front to back, he may slide over to the middle, or she may slide over to the middle to keep the same distance laterally from each other, which also now opens up that sideline. And so I have to take that into account when I'm reserving and when I'm returning the ball as well, because I don't want to set my partner up to have to try to cover a lot of ground when they don't necessarily have to, since I have other parts of the court I can hit. So I'm inviting the backhand side serve and I'm potentially giving up some better placement because of that. So you just want to be really strategic when you do that. And so bounce right to the next thing, return of serve. So just a really quick reminder, it does not change. Your goal is to make it to the no volley zone. So even when you're taking these strategic shots, the goal doesn't change. You still want to get there. Now, based on if you hit one that is supposed to be taking advantage of the other side and they get to it and hit a shot back at you faster than you were anticipating and you don't make it, obviously in the next video we're going to cover what you should do there, but then you want to start hitting shots that are going to get you to the no volley zone, right? So make it to the no volley zone for the third shot and you can begin phase 3. So a few things to keep in mind here to focus on. First, focus on the strong side for return shot. So focus on what side is your strong side. So say it's my forehand, I'm going to probably slide more to my left, not all the way to the line, but more to invite the forehand serve. And I should also, number 2, I should also be the side that provides multiple opportunities or multiple options. So it will give me a lot of options based on what I'm seeing on the other side. And then 3, focus the best way to set up my partner. So I'm also looking at ways to set my partner up for a good third shot look and fourth shot as he takes the fourth shot and potential poaches. And then number 4, just don't overthink it. Once you see what's happening and you feel like this is where I want to go with it, then go with it. You don't want to keep changing your mind. You don't want to overthink this. You just, this is what we're going to do. This is what we discussed, and you go for it. And if it works, great. You got the advantage. If it doesn't, you're still playing the game of pickleball. Okay, so very important thing to mention right here. I know I mentioned it in level 1, but I will re-mention it here, is probably one of the most egregious mistakes that you can make is to hit a return out. Why? Because you're giving up, it's an immediate point. You're giving up points without the other team having to do anything. And so every return shot that you hit that's out, that's just a free point that you're giving to the other team, and that's not something you want to do. So first and foremost, just get the ball in and work on placement. The minute you start having a lot more success with placement, then you start really working on this part of it, which is now you're working on placing the ball. Okay? And so those are the first thing to focus on. The second thing to focus on is setting up your partner, which we discussed a little bit before. So focus on setting up next shot. So based on where you're hitting the ball is setting up your partner. Focus on baiting serve for setup shots. So again, this is like I'm baiting my forehand. Every now and then I might bait my left hand if I see something, but I'm going to slide one way or the other a little more to bait that open spot, right? Focus on the forced shot opportunity. So whether you're taking it or whether you're setting your partner up to take it, you're really focused on setting that up. And then of course, take a breath. Again, don't overthink this. Once the game gets going, it's back to the basics, right? If you don't have a winner, if they don't put up something to give you a winner, then you're going back into reset shots, you're going into dinking, the whole bit. And then, of course, remember your thumb, because wherever you push your thumb, that's where the ball is going to go. So let's talk about a couple drills you can do. Ground stroke drill number 1, as you can see. So essentially, really easily put, this is standing in the middle of the court, have partner hit balls to you to both backhand and forehand to practice ground strokes. The idea is that your partner should not have to move as you hit the ball right back to them. So you're going to start in the middle and say they're going to start to your forehand. So they're going to hit a ball to your forehand side. You're going to hit it on the bounce, so ground stroke it, and you're going to hit it. Your goal is to hit that ball right back to where they are, and then they're going to turn and hit the ball now to the left court, which you're coming back to the center after you hit that forehand, and now you're getting ready to move over and hit with your backhand ground stroke, okay? And every time you want to come back to center. But as this gets going, you're going to realize that as soon as you hit this ball, you're turning and you're moving across the court to the other side because the ball should be coming right back, right? So it should be a steady movement. You should be able to move fast enough to get set up and make a great shot. Again, once you make that shot, you don't want to watch it all the way. You want to watch it hit your paddle and take off, and then you want to be on the move to the other side, right? So if to regress this a little bit, you can just stay forehand. So hit that forehand, move to the middle, come back to the forehand until you get pretty good with that, then do backhand until you feel comfortable with that, and then alternate, right? Okay, so let's talk about the second drill that you can do. Now, you don't have a partner, but you do have a wall, whether you're inside or outside. This is ground stroke drill number 2. You bounce off the wall to the forehand and to the backhand. So you set up and you take that ball and you bounce it off the wall. And once it bounces off the ground, you're going to strike it with the paddle. You're going to stroke it with the paddle back to the wall, nice and easy, but you're going to work on. So say you start with your forehand, you just work on hitting the forehand ground stroke, and then you can move to the backhand ground stroke, and then you can start alternating, because that takes a little more paddle control to be able to hit the ball in a way that it bounces from your forehand off the wall to your backhand, and then you hit it off the backhand, bounces off the wall to your forehand. But ultimately, that's the goal. That's where we want to get to. Okay, so those are 2 great ground stroking drills to start working on with ball placement. Again, watch yourself hit that ball. This is all setting us up for when we get on the offense for the next video on the return. So thank you for joining me today, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.